Hello, Flirties. It's me, Benjamin, the Flirt Coach, and Gay Libra here at Flirt Headquarters. I've got my radio voice on for the intro to the intro. The full conversation with Carleigh Ferrante on exclusivity and defining the relationship and dating coming in mere moments right around the corner. I mean, yeah, that's this episode. You're listening to it. All the information coming, all of your questions will be answered. But before we get there, if I may, I have a request. Please rate, review, subscribe to the show. Share this one or another favorite episode with a friend, a family member, a coworker, someone dating, someone you want to share some BFE, Big Flirt energy with. Yes, 5 stars, a comment on Spotify, a thumbs up on YouTube, a comment on YouTube, some stars on Apple, Spotify, wherever you are, wherever you're listening in the world, wherever you're tuning in from. Thank you so much for being here. I couldn't do this without you. All of this is for you. Now the full conversation with Carleigh coming now. Coming up on this episode of Flirtations, we're defining the relationship, y'all, with Carleigh Ferrante. Carleigh is the creator and voice of At Mostly Dating on Instagram and host of the Mostly Dating podcast, having built a community of over 200,000 with her honest takes on dating and relationships. Whether you're feeling things out with someone new, stuck in dating limbo, or ready to move from casual to committed, this episode offers advice on how to approach conversations around exclusivity and defining the relationship with clarity and confidence. We'll talk about what signs to look for that someone is ready for that conversation, how to know if you're ready, what to consider before having it, and how to handle it if you're not on the same page. Carleigh shares her take on the timing of the DTR convo, whether exclusivity and defining the relationship are the same thing, and how to navigate situations where one person needs more time. We also cover what to expect after this conversation, like how to keep things moving forward or how to walk away if it's not working. And finally, we talk a little mindset. Why do we fear scaring someone away? And how can we stay grounded when we're feeling unsure about where we stand with someone? So whether you're about to DTR, go exclusive, all of the above, or none of the above, stick around for a candid and honest conversation about dating and relationships. All right, let's do this, Flirties. And me, Carleigh.
I heard you wanted to flirt. I heard you wanted to flirt. I heard you wanted to flirt. Hello, my name is Benjamin. I'm the Flirt Coach and a Gay Libra. Everyone has an inner flirt.
Hey, Flirty.
Live, laugh, flirt.
Work the flirt.
Work the flirt. Delulu is the Salulu. Expert on the flirt.
Hey, Flirty. There's always another flirt.
Everyone has an inner flirt. Get out of your head and into the flirt.
Flirties, today we're joined by Carleigh Ferrante, the creator and voice of At Mostly Dating on Instagram and host of the Mostly Dating podcast. Carleigh has built a community of over 200,000 with her honest takes on dating, from texting etiquette to dating app fatigue to knowing when to walk away and when to define the relationship, which is exactly what we're going to be getting into today on the show. Carleigh, hello and welcome to Flirtations.
Hi, thank you for having me. This is so exciting and so much fun. This is one of my favorite topics.
Oh my gosh, yes. As I was like, I did my outreach. I said, Carleigh, you want to come on the show? And I pitched an idea and you said, hold up. I think let's do this. And it was perfect. So serendipitous because, believe it or not, over 100 episodes of Flirtations, there is not one standalone episode on defining the relationship and exclusivity.
Oh my God, we're going to get into all of it today.
Good Lord. Yes, we are. Before we get into the About You portion of the interview for a moment, I want to set the Flirties up with, because I always find that sometimes I speak in acronyms or I use terms that not everyone understands. And so what does DTR is often defined as, or abbreviated as, or no, defined as, define the relationship. That's what I was trying to say. And then exclusivity, kind of that, maybe are we getting off the apps kind of thing, making things just the two of us, but maybe we're not official. So before we get going with all the questions and such, how would you define DTR and exclusivity?
Yeah. Oh, this is a topic I could go on forever, so I'll try to keep my answer short. I have so many thoughts on this. It's like, I don't know when this started that there were these two separate steps, but somewhere along the way there became like an exclusivity and defining the relationship. Yeah. And I will stand strong on that. You don't necessarily need to have those two separate steps. It's whatever works for you and your partner, the person you're dating, whatever. I personally, when I was out there dating, I didn't feel the need to have an exclusivity conversation before we're having the title defining conversation. But my relationship now, like my boyfriend did, he brought up exclusivity before bringing up defining the relationship. And I was a little bit resistant to it at first because it's like, why? Like, why am I going to tell you that I'm not going to date anybody else or do it like swipe on the apps or anything if you're not ready to be my boyfriend? And I think that's the like reaction that a lot of people will have when they hear about exclusivity before defining the relationship. And the way that he explained it, to his like kind of point of view and perspective to me was like, we at this point we've been like 3 dates. It was really early on. He's like, we've only been on a few dates. Like, we're obviously neither of us are in the place yet where we want to define the relationship, but we're both enjoying getting to know each other. And I personally like to know that like we're kind of focusing on that and not going to be focusing on other people so that we can both kind of put the energy into seeing where this goes. And in my mind, I'm like, I think that's just what I do naturally. I just never felt the need to talk about it. When I'm interested in someone, I probably am not going to really be swiping on the apps, and I'm probably not going to be going on other dates. And if it's important to them that they know that and I'm on the same page, then why not be exclusive? Exclusive to me does mean exactly what you said. Like you're not on the apps, you're not going on dates with other people. If you guys are like hooking up, you're not hooking up with other people. And then defining the relationship is you're my boyfriend, you're my girlfriend, whatever like relationship you want.
Yes. Really good distinction. And I hear this from the flirty sometimes too, where it's like, wait, isn't exclusivity and DTR the same thing?
Yeah.
Is it the same conversation, right? How are we doing this? We're going to be getting into all your questions today, of course, like timing, how to have those conversations, how to know if maybe you're ready. Yes, getting into it all. But I'm not quite sure where exclusivity came into the mix, but I feel like somewhere as dating apps are really coming on the market in a big way, and people started to take to them as the primary way they're meeting people and making those matches and forming those more romantic connections, it's reasonable that it's like, we've made versions of these videos like, are you single, or are you like single?
Yeah.
Single. So it's it's pretty reasonable that if you're out there dating, people are also dating, at least talking to someone else.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I don't remember who it was now, but I had a guest on my podcast once and they were like, well, no one's really ever truly single. And I'm like, actually, I definitely have been truly single before.
See, me too, Carleigh. Me too. Like, I tend to become exclusive with someone relatively quickly, even if I haven't explicitly told them that. Like, if I'm getting into that third date point with you, you're the only person I'm talking to at that point.
Me too. Yeah, but I do, to your point, I do understand people needing to make the distinction when there are dating apps and there are so many things out there that it's probably, I would say in the majority of cases, it's safe to assume that unless you've talked about it, the other person is probably still on the apps, especially if you met on an app, like they're probably still on there.
Yeah. And I think it gives, because I'm always curious, like, why the DTR conversation seems to bring up so much anxiety, right? We place so much pressure on that conversation. We're definitely going to get to that. And I think the exclusivity part of this, it's definitely a step in the right direction, right? If you're agreeing to only date one another, you're kind of defining the relationship in terms of, are we monogamous? Are we going to be more open and stay that way? Are we maybe polyamorous? Like, so you're at least aligned on what type of relationship you want, even if you're not saying, hey, we're boyfriend, girlfriend, boyfriend, girlfriend, like however you're putting a label on the partnership, so to speak, you at least know that your relationship goals align.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that I've definitely heard the argument of kind of what I was saying before, like, well, why are you going to give them that privilege of knowing that you're exclusive if they're not like, and I do understand that mindset, but I think that's more of like a boundary you can set for yourself. Like if you do get stuck and you're exclusive for 6 months and you haven't defined the relationship and that's too long for you, then you have to bring that up.
Yeah. And like how your boyfriend approached this, like, because it's becoming exclusive after 3 dates, but you may not want to, like, how well could you possibly know someone in, let's say, a date a week? So 3 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
It's still not a lot of time.
Definitely not a lot of time.
Okay, Carleigh. So mostly dating, the Instagram, the podcast. How did you get started?
Oh, okay. So there's a little bit of backstory because I started the podcast with my best friend, Mia. And we started it. It was called Mostly Balanced at the time. And it was very broad, sort of wellness, lifestyle. We would talk about dating and relationships, but we'd also talk about pretty much like everything. And we would have all different types of guests. And we started to notice that what we enjoyed talking about the most and what we found other people were liking the most were the episodes that were focused on dating and relationships. So we kind of ended up like niching down there. We still kept the name at the time, but that was like also what brought us together as friends, as we became friends in our like late 20s. And we kind of bonded over past relationship experiences. And we just wanted to have like that approachable advice, also just kind of like airing what was going on with us. She was in a relationship and I was single at the time. So we had a variety of perspectives. And I guess now at this point, as we're recording, it was about a year ago that she decided she didn't want to do the podcast anymore. She had a full-time job and she just decided she wanted to like focus fully on that. And I wanted to like just go hard on the podcast and keep doing it and growing it. So I did that. I rebranded a little bit. I changed it to Mostly Dating and it's been so much fun. It's grown so much since then. And I just, I love, these are topics I could talk forever about. I also, outside of it, I'm a writer and an editor and I've interviewed so many experts on like relationships, dating, sex, all of those things, but also wellness. So the reason I call it Mostly Dating is because I really do believe that like every part of your life impacts your dating life. So
oh my gosh,
I focus a lot on all of that too.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I think I always have a follow-up question. And now, my follow-up question is, because I also think dating doesn't exist in isolation. It doesn't exist in a vacuum. If we're dating, we're also going to school. We're working. We have other relationships with family, friends, the relationship with ourselves. Maybe we're working on our health or we're committing ourselves to new goals or something like that. And so, I want to hear a little bit more about that perspective and why you focus on things outside of dating too.
And that's like, it's something that if you listen to my podcast, you'll hear me talk about on almost every episode, just because it's like you said, you're not dating in a vacuum. It's impossible to talk about dating and relationships and not talk about so many other areas of your life because they're all so intertwined. And it's like, even thinking about like your relationship with yourself, that's going to impact your dating life and your relationships with other people so much. And like how well you're keeping up with your self-care, how happy you are in your career, all your family life, friendships, all of those things. And so I do tend to like, I'll randomly be sharing like a wellness practice I love or something else that's going on like in my life. And it's because those things are so tied together. I'm like, I mean, and I might mention this a little bit more later, but I'm about to, when this comes out, I would have recently launched a course that's focused on like improving your dating life and finding the relationship you want. And there's whole sections on like that don't even feel like they have anything to do with dating because it's all about that self-reflection that I think helps your dating life so much.
Yeah, I think so too. What's been one of the maybe your favorite parts about doing this? Could be a source of inspiration or maybe something you've learned along your Mostly Dating journey that just was like an aha moment for you.
My favorite part of it, I guess it's a tie because it's definitely interviewing people, hearing different perspectives of people that I get to meet. But I feel like even like a little bit above that is just the people that I interact with in the community, like the listeners and the Instagram followers, the questions that they bring up. And even like every week before I record a new episode, I always kind of go through the messages and the questions I got the week before and search for commonalities. And I love seeing that. I love seeing how many people are dealing with similar issues because I don't know about you, but like I have been in places in my dating life before where I felt like I was like the only one dealing with this.
Definitely. Yeah. And it's like when you feel like you're the only one dealing with something or going through something, but then like on our end of the screen or the mic and we can see some general, everyone's situation and dating lives are different, of course, but there are some themes, there are some commonalities. And one of those is the anxiety with defining the relationship. Like this has got to be a question that you see come up every week. I know I see it during Flirt Fridays. There's always not even just one, multiple questions about timing, pacing, how to have this conversation. When is too soon, right? How long should I wait? Who brings it up, right? So many questions.
No, there's so much that's like that. That is by far the most common question that I get is about defining a relationship or to your point earlier, what's DTR? Because I use it so much. I get that question all the time.
Me too. I'll even get sometimes, right, I'll do friends with benefits, FWB. What does that stand for? And I've just, kind of taken for granted of using some slang or vernacular. But I'm like, wait a second, because the flirt community, I'm sure it's the same with your community, it's global. It's all over the world.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, it's all over the world. And that comes up a lot too, because I'm like, I like to even learn from my listeners and from my community on Instagram of actually what is dating like in this country that I've never dated in before. So, and you'll find that it's very, very similar, as I'm sure you've noticed as well. But there's so much anxiety around defining the relationship, or just so much, it's not necessarily always anxiety, but just nerves and kind of like putting so much pressure on it and so much weight on it. And I think that just comes from, it's like we all kind of avoid like difficult conversations or conversations where we don't know what the outcome is going to be. And I think that so much of the uncertainty and the like nerves around defining the relationship can be boiled down to just not really the clearest communication leading up to it. So if you haven't had more difficult conversations or more like deeper discussions about what you want for the future and things like that, then you're going to feel even more nerves because you're really not going to be sure how it's going to go. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I'm currently dating in and out. I'm now in more so, Carleigh, like a dating phase. I started dating again.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yes. I had to take a break for a moment doing coach things, right? Very busy over here at Flirt headquarters. And it's like I'm having these experiences now where I forgot how much fun it can actually be, because you learn more about yourself. You learn where you're at. You get to learn about other people and where they're at and what they're going through and just about their lives. And I just find that fascinating. But also as an empath, I tend to take on a lot of the energy of other people. So I'm being reminded of that experience. I'm also being reminded of how much I give people the benefit of the doubt and just want to see the best in people. I want to help them. I want to be there for them, but I can't overextend myself or sacrifice my own boundaries just to be present in someone else's life that I don't like really know that well yet. So I'm having to like check myself there and having to really pay attention to green flags and how someone is showing up more so than, oh, but they're so cute, right? Or, oh, they text a lot, or, oh, they're so funny. Well, love it, but that's not enough to sustain a relationship.
And it's so interesting. Everything you just said, you're so right that those are all things you learn from actually dating and from getting out there and like dating and having those experiences. We can also put so much pressure on that, even just going on a first date. And I think if everybody could have a similar mindset to what you're saying of like, this is actually fun. I'm actually learning about myself. I'm learning about other people. I'm learning about what I want. Like that's kind of the best approach, in my opinion, to go about dating. And my dating life got so much better when I started thinking about it that way.
It's a lot more freeing. There's a lot less pressure. There's some anxiety, but overall a lot less. I'm not staring at my phone. I'm not lying awake at night. I'm not second guessing myself. I'm not self-sabotaging or blaming myself or getting impatient. And to what you were sharing earlier, why I think like one reason why the DTR conversation can be so difficult is because if we're avoiding a lot of those, it's not like you're just going with the flow and then 3 months in, so what are we? You want to be in a relationship? Like, no, flirties, we're going to give you some tools. That's not what we're doing. Of course you're going to, because you've been avoiding the elephant in the room, right? You're not talking about the thing.
Wait, I'm curious though. So now when you're out there kind of getting back into dating right now, when you're on early dates with people, do you usually talk about like what you're looking for or talk about like your dating life in general?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm one of those. I'm a dater that tends to bring it up more on the second into the third date. The first date, I just want to see like vibe check, right? How do I feel around them? Can they ask me questions? Do they seem interested? Can they communicate? Can they show up? Am I getting honestly some of those bare minimum dating behaviors to indicate that someone is even intentional and serious about just having a first date? And then how's the first date follow-up, right? Is there a, hey, had a good time? Is there that expression of interest? Or they just let it go? Are they waiting for me to reach out? Are we playing the chasing game?
So if there's like, we're meeting just some of those bare minimum check boxes, more or less, then second, third date, it's like, okay, so tell me, right? What what you looking for out here?
Yeah.
What do you value in a relationship, right? Yeah.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I think of the first date in the exact same way. I always call it the screener, because you're really just kind of screening them a little bit. And the only goal, in my opinion, is to figure out if you're interested enough, if you're curious enough to go on a second date. It's not, or do you want to date this person forever? It's just, do you want to go on another date with them?
Yeah. I used to put so much pressure on that first date that it was like this make or break moment. And it's like, if you're coming on, meeting on the apps or something, or maybe you're being introduced by your friend, like, this is, you are two strangers.
Yeah.
Like, I think we got to remind ourselves of that.
Yeah. And putting so much pressure on it too, I found to always be kind of a double-edged sword. It's like, if it doesn't work out, it's so much harder and you feel like you've already planned your whole future with that person. Yeah. And even on the opposite end of it, sometimes you put so much pressure on it that then you don't even give someone a second date when maybe you should have, because like you could have just learned a little bit more about them and maybe you guys could have hit it off. So we kind of like, we kind of sabotage ourselves if we put so much pressure on the first date.
Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, I can recognize to some extent, right, if you are having this conversation, 3 months in, let's say, for defining the relationship, well, it's a little bit of the sunk cost fallacy, right? You've already invested 3 months of your time, 3 months of your life with someone, and you don't want to necessarily have to forgo all of that and start over.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, I get that. But also, you'll never be further from the right relationship than when you're in the wrong one.
I always say stuff like that. Yes. That's so true. It's like, there's no better way to not meet the person you're going to date than stay with somebody who's like not meeting all your standards.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's get into some of the nitty gritty details. Defining the relationship, exclusivity. Open the conversation with, I think, defining what each of those terms mean. And so now let's give the flirties some general guidelines in terms of time.
Yeah.
So when is a good time that we should be discussing exclusivity and then defining the relationship?
Yeah. So I'm always so careful to not give like timelines in terms of length, but I like that we're talking about timeline, maybe even in like signs that it's time. Cause I think that every relationship is different. You might start to see these signs after 2 months, you might start to see them after 3 months or whatever it is. And I think also you kind of mentioned this earlier, but if you have had the exclusivity conversation, that does feel like a stepping stone toward this.
Yes.
So having that is, in my opinion, one of the signs. We've already talked about being exclusive. Even if you haven't talked about it, you already feel like you're monogamous, I think is a sign, if that's something you want in your relationship, like you want to be in a monogamous relationship. I think if you don't have interest in going out with other people and you're not wondering kind of like what else could be out there, that's a big sign. Yeah. But a few things for me actually that stand out that are like, okay, if you're experiencing this in your relationship, it might be time to talk about defining it. One of them is your communication has become regular. And this is a big one that I like to point out because I think people get so stressed about texting between dates and communication between dates. And I think that once you get to the point, which should happen as you're, in my opinion, again, I don't like giving timelines, but like 3, 4, 5 dates in, I would say usually at that point, your communication should be pretty regular. I think you shouldn't be overthinking what you're going to say to them. You shouldn't be screenshotting your conversation and like sending it to all your friends. What should I say? It should feel more natural. Like communication with you guys on dates and between dates is pretty like natural and kind of flowing normally. And you're spending time together regularly. So obviously this is different if you're in a long distance relationship or something like that. But I think that it's a really, really big sign. And I always liked when I was dating and it kind of got to the point that plans were just assumed, like you knew you were going to see them. It's like, oh, it's the weekend. What are we doing this weekend? Yeah. And you're going on those regular dates, but you're also having a mix of like a date night out and also maybe something casual at home, or you're doing things in each other's natural environments and spending time together outside of just this big planned date. I think those are all some pretty good signs.
Okay.
All right, this is really good. And we're going to come back to this in a moment as we talk about some of those green flag things to look for, or maybe what should be present in your dating journey to know if someone is ready for a relationship, if you're ready, some of those questions to ask before getting into a relationship. I love having that be part of this discussion. And two things I'm picking up on are letting the connection and thus the communication progress over time. Like, we got to be okay taking things a little bit more slowly, because if you start at a 10, if you have that marathon first date, you're texting all day, every day, or you were texting a ton before the first date and you follow each other on social media and you exchange snap scores. And now you're like, you're so interconnected. You're so a part of each other's lives, but you've only known each other, let's say 2 weeks out of your whole life. It's giving anxious attachment a little bit, Carleigh. I got to be honest. You start at a 10, where can you go? You either stay at the 10 or you go down to a 9, 8, 7, 6, right? And then it's like, oh, but they used to be so consistent and now they're pulling back. There's a shift in energy. What does this mean? And now you're spiraling, you're chasing, you're getting anxious. Like, we got to be okay starting even at a 4 or 5.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I totally agree. And I think that goes back to what we were saying earlier about the first date being kind of low stakes and just getting to know them. If you are putting so much effort into date 1, like, where do you go from there? It's like, really and also same thing if you have like fireworks and sparks on date 1, it's like, don't you want to kind of enjoy like the attraction building and the connection building? I think that's such a fun phase in the relationship. Like, you don't have to rush it.
That is something, I'm so glad you mentioned that. Something I'm relearning about dating, where I've been on a few dates with a guy, and like, I don't know where it's going to go. I have to be honest. I don't think it's going to really go past maybe date 4. We're already kind of like reaching that plateau, and I just see we're at different phases in our lives. And anyway, but the first date, there was really no spark, right? There kind of wasn't that chemistry, but there was some interest. There was consistency, right? We had good conversation. I felt it really start to show up on date 2 and then into date 3. And then kind of now after date 3, it's like, well, yeah, we got to the spark. Like, there's some chemistry there, but then I can't just like follow the flame. I got to look at, why am I dating? What am I looking for? And even though that spark has gotten to be there, I don't know that we're actually aligned in terms of what we're both looking for and where we're at, right? So it's like finding this balance in the early dating process as well, where in the past I would look for that spark right away or do whatever I could to create that, maybe rushing towards intimacy before I was ready. Yeah. Just some food for thought.
No, I totally agree. And I've done the same thing in the past. And I think that's why it's so important to really think about the difference between like chemistry and compatibility. And everything you're saying is true. It's like, it takes time to figure out if you have 1, 2, or like both of those things. Like, I think that's just you have to let it unfold and like just
definitely
happen over time.
Yeah, and I'm balancing this with, I still have my whole life that I have worked so hard to create. I'm not sacrificing the relationship with myself, my other relationships. I am dating others as well, which is new for me, Carleigh, to kind of experience that multi-dating strategy. But I'm finding a way to make it work. And to the timeline piece, like, it's hard to give hard timelines because everyone is different. We bring everything into the dating process, our whole selves, all of our stories and experiences. But I also don't want daters to, hold out longer maybe than they should. So for me, like, if we're going very traditionally 1 date a week, if they don't want to become exclusive after date 4 or 5, 6 at the max, it's a no for me.
Okay. Yeah. And that's good to know. Like, it's good to know I think that everybody, like, when I say I don't want to give timelines, I don't mean like you shouldn't give yourself a timeline. It just means like, I can't give it to you. Because some people's timeline might honestly be 3 dates for exclusivity. And some people's might be, I think like 6 honestly does feel like really good to me. I think that's a significant amount of time. If you are, like you said, a date a week, then that's like a month and a half that you put into this. Yeah. And then like, once you have the exclusivity, like, even in my relationship now, like I said, we had the exclusivity pretty early, but then I guess it was probably like 3 months in that then we hadn't had the defining the relationship conversation. And I started to notice in myself that I was like, okay, I'm actually not going to want to stay in this much longer if we don't have that conversation. I think it's a matter of like making sure then that you make that conversation happen and you don't start to like resent it or start to go into the situationship land and all that.
Yeah, that's such a good distinction. I'm glad you said that. You can still have a timeline for yourself, of course, because what you may encounter is, right, you're having those conversations. What are you looking for? Why are you dating kind of thing? And it seems like you're aligned and things are maybe going really well. And then you get to that date 5 or 6 and it's like, oh, right, I'm not ready.
Yeah.
Oh, well, let's just why rush it, right? Let's just keep things exactly where they are. It's like, I'm not asking you to put a ring on it.
Right.
I'm just asking you can we just date one another? Because I know I want a monogamous relationship.
Right.
And so that's a standard for me. That's important.
And that becomes having the ability to bring that up and have that conversation becomes a skill that you're going to use throughout the rest of your relationship. You're going to want to talk about moving things forward to moving in, to getting engaged, to getting married. And there's always going to be a time that you have to figure out if you guys are on the same timeline.
All right, let's ask this question because the Flirties asked it. I know you get it too, where you are ready for exclusivity, maybe defining the relationship, and the other person is not. How do we navigate that situation?
Okay, so I always like to think about this, like if this is coming up and you guys, you're ready and they're not ready, this could be a situation where you clearly you're in 2 different lanes on the highway is like what I like to say, but are you heading to the same place? Like, is there a merge in sight? Can you see that you guys do both want this, but there are certain specific things that need to happen before that? If there's not like a roadmap to you guys getting into the same lane and into the same place, then I feel like it's kind of a lost cause. And what I mean by that is like, if they're not ready, then you ask a few questions about it. You don't get angry and like just kind of like shut down. You ask, okay, so what is typically a timeline for you for being ready to define the relationship? Or are there certain things that you still feel like unsure about specifically? Are there things you need to figure out first? Is there like just asking those types of questions and then really tuning into how well they can answer that. And if they're just pushing it off, then I don't think that that's a good sign. And it might be like this person isn't ready for a relationship or they just don't want a relationship with you, but it might not be aligned.
Yeah. This is, so good. And this is why, right, self-trust, standards, boundaries, your intuition, all of that, like you got to have all these tools in your dating toolbox because like, I think sometimes daters here is, I don't want to date potential or like, I don't want to waste my time. Like, I don't want to be taken advantage of. I don't want to be in this connection, in this budding relationship. If someone is right, can't even become exclusive. So where is that line between waiting, between looking to potential, what could be versus accepting what is? And I think it comes back to what ultimately feels right for you, right? If the other person is consistent, respectful, right? There's no obvious glaring red flags kind of thing. Sometimes it truly just is a timing thing. And I hear those stories all the time where one person is ready before the other. And then here they are in a relationship, married, and it's fine.
Yeah. And I've heard those stories too. And I think that you're so right that it's more about you knowing your own boundaries and how long you are willing to wait. So if you really care about this person, you see a future with them and you feel that true, like, belief that they are going to get there too. And they're giving you those signs and those signals and telling you that, then you can wait. But I think you have to be really honest with yourself about how long you're going to wait and then actually holding yourself to that. Because I've gotten stuck in situations where I've waited for way too long. And then finally, when I go to end it, they're like, well, I told you, like, I didn't really know when I was going to be ready. And it's like, that's why you have to have that really clear vision of how it's going to play out.
Definitely. And let's get into DTR, defining the relationship, as we are really just focusing on how to approach exclusivity, a general timeline around that piece. So maybe the DTR conversation is one and the same with exclusivity, but maybe it's not. So how could we approach the DTR piece of this if it's maybe a separate conversation?
Yeah. And I also think, I'm thinking now as we're talking about it, if you are having that exclusivity conversation, I also think it could be helpful in that moment to clarify with them, will we eventually have a conversation to define the relationship? Do you view those things separately? I think are questions you could ask, because then it's like an easy in for when you're ready to bring it up. Like, I know we're exclusive, but we haven't talked yet about actually defining things. And I am looking for a boyfriend, a girlfriend, whatever. And I'm feeling ready to start doing that with you, or whatever it is. Like, my biggest advice for both of these conversations, but especially defining the relationship, is just give the information for where you're at. And then that opens up the floor for them to do the same. It's like, you just say, I'm ready. I already feel like you're my boyfriend, or I feel like I'm ready to move our relationship forward. And then just like stop. And you don't have to ask, what are we? You don't have to ask, like, when are we defining the relationship? I think if you ask a question like that, even myself, like, even if I was ready, I would feel so put on the spot, and I wouldn't be as open to being vulnerable if the person hadn't shared yet. So if we are able to share where we're at, then it puts them in a better position to then share where they're at. And then you kind of take the conversation from there.
Yeah, that's so good. I love how you phrase that, Flirties. Come back to that part of the conversation. I mean, come back to several parts, but definitely that, because what I feel like I see, and you probably see this too, it's like when you approach this conversation, you have crafted the whole thing in your notes app, right? Maybe you've got a Google Doc, you shared it with friends, you shared it with family. You have a novel practically that you're about to read. But what happens is, like, the way you offered it is like, just state it's in the clearest terms possible where you're at, and let the other person respond. Don't fill in the gaps for them. Let them respond. Let them own their truth and share that with you, rather than you put it all out there. And then what could they do? Maybe mirror what you say, match energy kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's like, that will kind of ease your nerves, at least in my experience too, not planning out the whole conversation, because I used to do that, not only just for defining the relationship, but just with bigger, more like pressure conversations in relationships and anywhere in my life. Just like kind of, I would play it out in my head. Like, and then they're probably going to say this, and then I'll say this. And then you go into the conversation, they never say what you thought they were going to say exactly. And then you don't know what to say next. And it's just so I think just be open to the idea and the fact that they probably won't say exactly what you have written in your script, and listen to what they say. Also know that, like, maybe they're not like completely ready to talk about it yet because they really want to think about it a little bit more. Or maybe they already planned to bring it up and then you catch them off guard because they were going to bring it up. It's like, try to have some empathy that they might not, they might be a little taken off guard, and like, they might need to take a beat, and just like, don't panic if they don't exactly say like, yes, I'm ready, let's do it right now.
Yeah. I think so too. And what do you think about a general timeline for defining the relationship? How long are we maybe with someone before we get to that part?
Yeah, for me, I was like, at 3 months, I was like itching for it. And I was like, why have we not done this yet? I think I remember that I started dating my boyfriend in January of that year. And then in March, I was like, we had just gone on our first trip together. And I was like, this is kind of strange that like, we're not. So I brought it up, and like, I can't say I did it like the absolute best way, but like, I did kind of say that. I was like, I kind of feel like we should have defined the relationship already. Like, I'm starting to feel like kind of like anxious to do that. And then I like shared that with him, and then he shared where he was at. And so then we defined the relationship. Yeah. Like around that 3 month mark. I typically would say like, it's so hard because it also depends on your age and everything like that. But if you're at like 4 month mark and one of you is ready and the other one isn't, I think that there's probably some conversations you need to have and some things you have to work out. Yeah. If you're at the 6 month mark and neither of you is ready, then that's fine. Like, keep exploring it. But if one person is ready and the other isn't, I think that's when it becomes a little bit messy.
Yeah. I agree. And I hope a lot of the tools we've offered thus far will be really helpful and support you no matter where the conversation may go. And it's like, why? Yeah, I wanted to definitely talk about exclusivity first. It's like, let that be the stepping stone. And so for me, around that 4 date mark, and then like, I know we're only dating one another. We're talking about why we're dating. We're building alignment around values, lifestyle, desires, all that good stuff, compatibility, chemistry. So it's all there. And then when it comes to defining the relationship, I feel like that's just this, more often than not, a natural progression of the connection. It's not going to be this really pressure building milestone where, yeah, you may have some anxiety. Maybe one person's more ready before the other, but then you come into alignment around readiness. But like maybe also you date exclusively for 4 months, 6 months, and just enjoy that part of the dating process too. Like I've heard that where people date for, exclusively for an extended period of time. And then it's like one day, right on a Sunday morning, they look over at the other person. We should just make this official, shouldn't we?
Yeah, exactly. It could be as simple as that.
All right. A couple questions here, Carleigh. Who's initiating these conversations, exclusivity and or DTR?
I think anyone can initiate it. And I think that, again, as long as you're just initiating it by saying where you're at and not saying like, what are we, and putting all the pressure on them. I think if you're taking the step to initiate, then you're also taking the step to just like share what you're thinking. So like I said before, I know we haven't explicitly said it, but I'm ready to stop seeing other people if you haven't had the exclusivity talk, or I'm ready to call you my boyfriend or something like that. And then you can either just like stop and let them respond, or you can say, have you thought about that? Or what do you think? And then just open up the conversation. But either person, I would say, can do it.
Okay, regardless of gender, whatever your sexual identity may be, because you'll see a lot of this advice on social media. I know I see it where it's if you're a woman dating a man, don't initiate exclusivity, don't initiate the DTR, right? That's you chasing. Now you're out of your feminine. He should be the one to initiate. If he's your high value provider, masculine man, right? He's going to be the one bringing that up. And
I've seen all of that. I really, for some reason, the high value man just like makes me like my blood boil. I just like, I think that there are so many, because I also like, I love like a guy who leads, and I like someone who takes initiative in general, but I think that there's so many other ways that they can do that. It doesn't have to mean that they bring up every important topic. Like I personally, like and again, this isn't like a rule that I would say everyone has to follow, but like I knew that I wanted my boyfriend to say I love you first, so I didn't say it first. Like that, there are things like that that I still feel, but if it's a situation of like not knowing what's going on in our relationship, I would never just sit back and wait for them to bring it up.
Okay. All right. I think that's the distinction right there is you get to choose clarity for yourself first and foremost. That doesn't mean you're chasing. It doesn't mean you're attaching or trying to kind of quote unquote make someone yours. It's like, and it doesn't mean they're necessarily doing a bad job of making you feel safe and secure in this relationship, because we all bring everything into the dating process, a whole history, maybe anxiety, trauma, bad relationships, right? It's like, you get to be unclear even if the other person is doing everything right.
Yeah, exactly. And like if they are giving you red flags and not making you feel good or secure, then it's like you probably don't want it. Then the exclusivity defining the relationship isn't the conversation you should be having. You should be having the conversation about why they're not like giving you the things that you need.
Yeah. And I think we're gonna end there in a few moments, but I wanted to ask you this question here too. So some things to ask or some things to look for in that early dating process in terms of green flags, but specifically things you should talk about before defining the relationship. Yeah, I think, and I have so many Instagram posts and episodes about defining the relationship. I think I have one that's just like about conversations you should have, but some of the things, if I do, that would be in there are, I think that, of course, like everything we've already talked about, like you should know what they want for the future in general. Like if you feel uncomfortable talking to them about the future, then you're not ready to define the relationship. You should have already had some conversations about whether they want to get married, whether they want to have kids, like what they picture for their future life, like outside of a relationship, just like kind of figuring out what their own goals are for their career and for their personal life and everything like that. Those are all conversations that are going to help you get to know them better, but also help you picture what a life with them could be like, because it all comes back to like, you're not just trying to figure out if they want to be with you and if they like you. You want to figure out if this is someone that you want to be with before you have that conversation. I also think it's important to figure out like how they handle conflict and like disagreements and difference of opinions. That to me, I always say that's kind of a red flag if you haven't had that, or it's like you're not ready to define the relationship if you haven't disagreed on anything. Yeah, that's a little bit about, I mean, are both of you holding back? I mean, I love that there's compatibility and you're both just so giddy and like each other, but also like you haven't disagreed on what to watch on TV, to stream on Netflix, like where to go get dinner, right? One of you needed to cancel plans one time and reschedule. Like there's been no
Yeah, like nothing. It's a little bit sketchy. And so I think that like, don't force it. You don't like start an argument, but give it some, like check in with yourself and make sure, like you said, that you're speaking up and that you're saying if you don't agree with something, and then pay attention to like how they handle that. I also think you should talk a little bit about maybe like what your relationship might look like long term. Like you don't have to talk to them about like having kids together and what your wedding is going to be, but you could talk to them about like kind of how they like to celebrate milestones in a relationship, or like what their typical day-to-day looks like. Because like I said earlier, like you might have been going out on a lot of planned dates and you haven't seen their day-to-day lifestyle. And that's important to know too.
Yeah, really good. I mean, the conflict piece, just helping you know, right, when someone, do they shut down? Do they pull away? Do they cold shoulder, right? Do they more process internally, not necessarily as a way to be malicious or, emotionally distance themselves, even manipulate you? Like, that's a whole separate conversation. But I think sometimes when we're feeling hurt or angry, it's like we kind of go within. And so just knowing how someone processes conflict. And some of those questions, I mean, politics, religion, finances, right? I mean, if you're really dating because you want that long-term committed relationship, perhaps marriage, perhaps a family is in the future, we got to know the answers to some of those questions, at least know that we can compromise and agree to disagree, or just agree to be where we're at with some of those things. Very important. And what you were saying around like some of the lifestyle pieces, like I think I'm a very messy boy. So if you're more of that neat and tidy person, I mean, you see me out on the street, you see me on a social media video, at work, at the store, at Trader Joe's, pretty put together, looking very dapper, clean. My apartment, not so much.
And those are like things to learn about each other. I feel like it's like, even like what time you go to bed, what time you wake up, and what your like regular Saturday looks like. It's like, it might feel weird to ask those types of questions on dates, and you will learn that over time. But it's like, they actually could be fun questions to ask, because it'll bring up a lot of different topics.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we're just looking for overall alignment, and if not quite alignment, compatibility. Like that is the compatibility piece that is going to, right, when you actually truly like each other, when you have that friendship as well as the romantic aspect of things. That's what, I mean, dating your best friend that's what I want.
Yeah. And to your point earlier too, about like the politics and things like that, like obviously it's so important that your values align too. And that's why I really like to ask questions about that early on. And I don't love asking straightforward, what are your values? Because that question always like made me panic. I'm like, I don't know, what are they? But I like asking questions like, what's something that you wish people talked more about, or what the cause you care about, or what's something you would never change your mind about, what's something you have changed your mind about. Those types of questions, I think, help you learn about someone's values without getting, especially if you're on like date 1, 2, 3, without getting like super direct and putting them on the spot.
Yeah. I love those questions too. And for you asking the questions, if you're the one doing that, there's no right or wrong answer for you. You don't have to pretend or present yourself a certain way. You're not trying to engineer a response to get someone to like you or make yourself more palatable to them so they'll pick you, choose you. No, you get to, what's your truth? What's on your mind? What do you think you want to believe? Say that.
No, I'm so glad you said that. I have been in that headspace before where I've been dating and I'm like, oh, I think this is what they probably want me to say. So I'm just going to say it. And like, and then you end up with the wrong person, because it's like, you weren't being yourself.
Absolutely. Good Lord, I just looked at the clock. This has gone by so quickly. I do want to squeeze in one more question here about, so you get to these dating milestones, let's say exclusivity, DTR, defining the relationship, and maybe we're not moving forward, right? We've really been framing this conversation as if, oh, things are going so good, we're moving forward, right? We're checking those boxes kind of thing. But maybe you find they're not, or they say they're not ready, and you're like, you know what, actually I am. I got to be true to myself. This isn't going to work. So how might we approach the situation or conversation when we need to walk away, and how can we know if it's time?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I think that you really do have to hold on to what you want and the things you like, how you want to feel in a relationship, the things you want from a partner and what you want from that relationship, and don't accept less than that. There's a difference between feeling so strongly about the person that you're willing to wait because you do see a future, and then just like knowing in your gut that like, okay, they don't want the same thing that I want. And I've been on both sides of that, but I've been on the side where you just keep thinking, well, like maybe if this happens and that happens, and like you never know what could happen, and if they might change their mind, and if they just try, and like that's just, don't get stuck in that spiral. If this is not working for you, and the person that they are right now isn't working for the person that you are right now, like we're dating for the present moment. So in that scenario, I would be like very direct, and it doesn't have to be an argument or heated or anything. You just say like, I've really enjoyed getting to know you, but I am looking for something serious, and I do want someone who is ready to commit now. And I think it's best if we end it here before like things get further along. And I think you have that conversation in person if you've had a significant number of dates. I don't think it should be a text message. But I also don't think like neither person like owes the other one an explanation. But I do think like as open as you can be, because like we're all out here like trying to meet the person that we want to be with. And like sometimes it is helpful to give feedback if there is a specific reason or if there's something like, do it nicely. But like, if you say like, I'm looking for someone who is more aligned on this specific value, like we were saying before, or like something that you can give them, and then you just have to like hold strong to it. So like cold turkey, do not see them again.
Yeah. That's the hard part, is really holding true to your end of things, your decision, versus if you ended it and now, right, you start liking their stories, or you text them again when you're lonely or bored, or you went on a date and it didn't work out. Now you start to miss them a little bit and you change your mind. I mean, at the end of the day, is it truly a timing thing sometimes? For sure. And like getting back together with like the ex or the person you dated, I feel like is a whole separate conversation. But yeah, ultimately just staying true to yourself. And I love what you said. It's like, sometimes I feel like we approach these conversations of really hyping the other person up. Like, you're so great. I had so much fun. You're so wonderful. You're so amazing. All these things. But like, I know what you're trying to do. I've done that too. But I think just being really clear, offering someone that closure, that clarity, without being personal or blaming them or saying necessarily what's wrong kind of thing. Just really using those I statements, just holding yourself accountable to what it is that's ultimately going to be best for you. And yeah, it's going to be hard, especially if this is someone you've been dating for, let's say, 3 months, and you got to the DTR part of things and it just didn't work out.
Yeah. And those can be sometimes the hardest, because it's like you have like 3 months of really like fun times and thinking that it could go somewhere, and you don't have the whole like 3-year relationship of like a backup file of why it didn't work. So I think, to your point, like the most closure you can give someone. And then we all just have to remember that like we give ourselves closure at the end of the day. So if that person doesn't give that to you, then that's fine. But just know that like kind of I don't remember how you put it earlier, but like if you're stuck in that wrong relationship, you're not going to find the right one.
Nope, we won't. Been there, done that. I'm going to squeeze in one more very quick one, because I got a couple questions here about long distance dating. So do you think a lot of this advice and the exclusivity DTR piece mirrors if we were dating long distance as well?
I do, but I will say that in long distance, I would almost push the timeline, like make it faster, because I think you have to have even more communication in long distance. And it's like, you don't want to waste your time having a distance relationship with someone if you don't know from the very start that you're on the same page.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. I could ask you 101 more questions, but we are at time, Carleigh. This was amazing. Thank you so much for being on Flirtations. I want to send all the flirties to your Instagram, Mostly Dating, to the podcast, Mostly Dating, and you teased a new offer at the start of the interview. So where can they find you, follow you, and learn more?
Yes, this was so fun. First of all, thank you for having me. I also looked at the clock and I'm like, whoa, how did an hour just go by? But yes, thank you. You can find me on Instagram at Mostly Dating. You can listen to my podcast, Mostly Dating, wherever you listen to podcasts. I recently did start TikTok, but I haven't really done much there yet. And like I said earlier, I also have just launched a course called the Mostly Dating Blueprint. This brings together all of the best content from my Instagram, from the podcast, into one actionable guide to really help you figure out what you're looking for, how to find it, how to master the early dates, how to use the dating apps, how to meet in real life. It's literally like everything that worked for me and that has worked for so many people. So I'm so excited to bring that. And then the last thing I'll say is I also have a weekly newsletter. You can find all of this stuff on my Instagram, though. That's the main hub.
Amazing. I will have those links in the show notes below for this episode. Send the flirties your way. Carleigh, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much again.
All right, flirties, that's a wrap on this episode of Flirtations, the Defining the Relationship and Exclusivity episode of the program with Carleigh Ferrante. Can't believe I haven't dabbled into this very important topic on the show just yet. It only took over 100 episodes, but we did it. We did it. We brought you this episode today. Carleigh's podcast, Mostly Dating, is there for you as well. Her Instagram, Mostly Dating, so amazing. So much great information and resources there available for you. Yeah, check out Carleigh's stuff, all of it. And thank you so much, Carleigh, for being on the show today. Yes, and thank you to you, the Flirties, for tuning in, for listening, for streaming wherever you are in the world. I truly just appreciate you being here. Hope you find this good old show we call Flirtations helpful, supportive in your dating and flirting journeys. That's what it's all about. Yes, please rate, review, subscribe to the show if you haven't already. If you have, thank you so much. If you haven't, 5 stars, just as a mere suggestion. And I'll see you in the next episode upon debut. 2 episodes dropping weekly, or maybe need to catch up on Flirtations. Yeah, plenty of episodes now streaming for you. Okay, Flirty, thank you once again for being here. My name is Benjamin. I'm the Flirt Coach and Gay Libra. Flirty, happy flirting.